Welcome to the 360 Sports Network, otherwise known as 3SN on Twitter. Yes, you can reach us on Twitter. And in case you are thoroughly confused, we were once 360 Community Sports, but we have evolved into something bigger and better. I'm Greg Bichero, and with me tonight is Alex Delaverson and James Dotson. How are you guys today?
I'm a little down with all this lockout stuff going on. Hopefully they can get an agreement going soon, but I don't see anything happening before the deadline.
A little under the weather up here between lockout stuff and Penn State not heading toward the tournament, it looks like. But the grass is always greener somewhere else.
There you go. We'll be discussing a variety of topics, mostly the NFL and the collective bargaining agreement, and we're also going to be discussing an article that was written by myself about coaching like a champion and coaching elementary school kids. So, Alex, let's talk a little bit about the NFL here. I know you posted an article about the NFC North, and you want to start us off with some NFL action.
Of course, the lockout is on everyone's mind right now. But that being said, there still will be a draft. That being said, like you said, I've been covering a little bit of the NFC North. I actually think Cam Newton from Auburn would make a good selection for the Redskins. Now, that is, of course, unless Cincinnati might take him now, considering Carson Palmer will not step foot in Paul Brown Stadium, period. So I think Cam Newton could be a good fit in the Redskins uniform. I don't think anyone can be a good fit in the Bengals uniform.
Well, in case you've been hiding under a stone and don't understand what's going on in the world of English and sports, most people should know that Carson Palmer is wanting to announce his retirement. He will not play, so he says, for the Cincinnati Bengals. And quite frankly, Alex, can you blame him?
No, I don't blame him at all. I mean, this kind of speaks high volume of what's been going on in that organization. They're not a winning organization. They've had 2 playoff appearances within about 20 years. One of their highest paid players to say, hey, I don't want to come back. I don't want to be part of this organization. I have enough money. It kind of speaks to the high level of dysfunction going on in the organization right now. I mean, an unhappy Palmer, an always unhappy Chad Johnson, and a cancer Terrell Owens. And not to mention now, there's a little bit of light being shed on Marvin Lewis right now. I mean, he's not able to keep this team together. Maybe it's not all the players. Maybe it's not just the ownership. Maybe it's Marvin Lewis. But right now, it's just a dysfunctional organization. I feel bad for any rookie being selected by them, regardless of the money they would make.
It just seems to me that whole organization is snake bit. Every time they try to improve something, they end up either having half their team arrested for everything from drug possession to disorderly conduct to having, one of their star receivers, Travis Henry, die in a freak accident. There's just, it's truly, I believe, a snake bit organization. James, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that the Bengals have been downhill ever since Kimo Van Olhoffen got a little shot of Carson Palmer below the knees back in the 2005 playoffs. I think since then, it's just been Palmer's never been 100%, and the guys around him have been switching around so much you can't make any sort of chemistry. But what I want to know is how Carson Palmer, did he just go up to a bank, press a couple numbers, type in his PIN number, and say, ooh, I have $80 million in the bank. I can retire for love of the game if I need to.
Yeah, really. I mean, that is a oddly specific figure. If Carson Palmer has $80 million in the bank, how much does Big Ben have?
Can I get some of that $80 million? I want to go up to a bank and type in numbers and see I have $80 million to play with.
You know what, though? The Bengals are going to call his bluff. From what I've been reading and hearing, they're not going to try and trade him. They're not going to release him. They think this is just something, he's bluffing. They're going to wait until the season starts, whenever that may be. They have no plans to release him or trade him. Players do these things all the time. They talk about not wanting to play. James Harrison did it when he was getting fined. But I think this is serious. I think this is genuine. He was not happy at all last year, and he's sick of losing. So we'll see what happens with them.
But you know what? Can you really blame somebody like Carson Palmer? I mean, let's face it. Maybe the $80 million figure is a bit of hyperbole. Maybe, it's only $79.8 million. But regardless, here's a guy that's getting healthy again. He really doesn't have anything to prove right now. I mean, yeah, he was a star quarterback in college, Heisman Trophy winner, USC. Uh, Basically, why does he want to live his life in pain and in misery when he can just go out and just say, okay, fine, I'm done. If I'm not going to get what I want, I reserve that right to walk away. You can't blame him for doing that. Yeah,
You know where I can, I'm sorry to cut you off, Greg, but you know where I can see him going is Seattle. Why Seattle? Well, who coaches there? Pete Carroll. He used to be his former coach. He wants to go to a team where he'll be comfortable with. Hasselbeck, I mean, he's a good quarterback. He's not going to be there long. But I think in his mind, he wants to go to Seattle. There's been rumors about it ever since Carroll came within that organization last year. He wants to get out. He wants to get a fresh start. I could see him being a good fit in Seattle.
Another team that would really love to have somebody like Carson Palmer would be the Tennessee Titans. Vince Young basically isn't asking to be let go. He is being let go because of his antics. But they could definitely use a great signal caller down there in Carson Palmer. And I think he would be a great fit for that organization. You have an excellent wide receiving core. Carson Palmer is a true drop-back passer. Along the same lines of a Kerry Collins style type quarterback. Much more durable, a lot younger. I think he'd look great in a Tennessee Titan uniform.
He very well could. They do have a lot of weapons down there. Kenny Britt. Actually, we learned today that Moss will not be re-signing with the Titans. But they still have a lot of good players down there. Like you said, a strong receiving core. Of course, you got Chris Johnson. I could see him there. Vince Young doesn't want to be there. Apparently, they don't want Vince Young there. I'm trying to think of any other teams that would want him. What do you think, Dotson?
I think what you were saying with Tennessee and Seattle is perfect. If you can have the old timers of Kerry Collins and Hasselbeck doing well in those places, imagine getting a true drop back quarterback, young and durable like Palmer. I think you're right. Those would be two good places for him. The only other possibility that I could think of would be possibly the Oakland Raiders with the up-and-coming talent that they have outside with Jacoby Ford and possibly Haywood Bay if he decides to start playing ball again.
Yeah, but you know what, Dotson? I mean, I'm going to cut you off here at the pass.
Yeah.
If he hates it in Cincinnati,
you're not going to want to be with Al Davis.
Bridge out there.
Yeah, no, I right after I said that, it was like, it's a good fit with the team, but not exactly a good fit with the organization. So we'll see.
It takes a truly special player to play in places like Washington and in Oakland, where the organization is more dysfunctional than Charlie Sheen.
Oh, God.
Don't get me started.
Oh, yeah, I don't want to talk about Charlie Sheen. What is surprising, on a lot of sports websites like ESPN and Sportsline, guess what the number one topic was? It wasn't an athlete. It was Charlie Sheen.
Yeah, well, Charlie Sheen is sort of an everybody's type guy, with his hit show 2.5 Men. He kind of portrays what I think every college student, I guess, aspires maybe to be or not to be. I'm not sure, but nonetheless, it is truly fantasy in every sense of the word. But let's go back now. Let's kind of steer this back toward some of these articles that we've written here on our 360 Sportsnet itself. Talking a little bit about, we have an upcoming draft here. And what are some of the needs of some of these teams out there that you see in the NFC, Alex?
Well, the Eagles franchise Michael Vick, so they got their quarterback situation down. Like I said, the Redskins can go after Cam Newton in the draft. Any team could use a good quarterback right now, but the Cowboys, they got Tony Romo. He'll be coming back. The Giants, of course, they got Eli Manning. I wouldn't be surprised if they try and get targets for Eli Manning. down there in New York, actually New Jersey. They got a lot of good receivers coming up in the draft. Who do I think will be the number one overall pick? I'm not sure, but right now this is a pretty lineman-heavy draft.
Go ahead, James.
I'm just thinking a couple other places. I think up north, I think you're going to get Minnesota definitely getting a quarterback early. I don't think they're going to be able to stick with Webb as a quarterback full time. I just don't think they'll be able to do it. But beyond that, yeah, you're right. Everybody's going to be going lineman heavy, both offense and defense. There's a couple good cornerbacks out there. I think Mel Kiper just moved a cornerback from LSU to his top prospect in the draft, which means he'll probably be drafted 10th just because there won't be anybody who wants one. So it's still a long way to go, and I think you're going to see a lot more possibility for, I would say, safe picks with the linemen, not knowing what's going to be going on in terms of will there be a rookie salary cap or not. But if that's all taken care of before draft day, then you could see 6 or 7 quarterbacks go in the first round.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. On the AFC front, basically looking at teams like, well, everybody knows that Pittsburgh is going to need some offensive linemen. And fortunately, there are a lot of line people in the draft itself, both offensive as well as defensive linemen. And, of course, Pittsburgh's other need that really needs to be addressed is their corners, with Troy Polamalu starting to go long on the tooth. And I really believe Troy is entering into the decline of his career right now. And it looks like it's going to be probably a short-lived career in Pittsburgh, maybe another 2-3 years at the most. Pittsburgh really needs to start looking at a replacement for Troy right now as well.
Well, actually, I think, I'm not so sure if I agree with you on Troy Polamalu. He did win Defensive Player of the Year. But a lot of people on that team could and probably will be retiring soon. Hines Ward is old. Ferrier is old. So they got a lot of players they might need to replace. Aaron Smith, he's hurt. He's old. I'm starting to wonder if those 3 guys were retired, if the Steelers would have won the Super Bowl. I mean, what a way for them to go out. Winning a 3rd Super Bowl ring. I really wouldn't have been surprised if they would have retired right after then. Hines Ward, of course, he says he has no plans of retiring. I mean, he's on Dancing with the Stars, so obviously he feels young and healthy, right? But you got to start preparing for the future. So, yeah, for the Steelers, I think their draft should be completely linemen and corners, offensive linemen, corners. They just need to stock up on that. This is actually one draft where I'm more excited to get linemen and grittier players than compared to skill players.
Yeah, well, following Pittsburgh, we all know the woes of Big Ben, and I don't know what hit him worse, going down to a bar in Georgia or getting sacked so many times in the course of the year. I think they're both equally devastating to him. The patchwork line itself was like a sieve throughout much of the season itself. People were getting through with great alacrity and putting Big Ben on his can and breaking his nose and jarring his ribs and the whole 10 yards. The guy looked like Frankenstein toward the end. So there's, if you're a Steeler fan, you're definitely going to be excited about an offensive line pick itself. But let's take a look at some of the other teams right now, some of their needs. We all know that Cleveland needs to reestablish a running game. The Baltimore Ravens have a need. They're going to need to get a tight end here fairly soon, and they're going to need to address their defense as well. James, do you have any thoughts on some of these other teams in the AFC North?
Well, I would definitely say Baltimore needs to look towards their defense. I know that sounds kind of wrong for Baltimore. They're always known for their defense, but their defensive players, Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, they're all getting pretty old. So you're definitely right. They should be going after some cornerbacks and linebackers in the first round. Patriots can look everywhere. Just looking at them, how many draft picks will they have this year and how many more will they get as the draft goes along? I would say one of the interesting teams to look at though for the AFC North would be the Browns, just because. Well, it's always interesting to see what our Brownies are going to be doing in terms of a draft pick, and I think with Colt McCoy coming through, he's been looking strong for his rookie year. I think if they decide to stick with him, they need to start putting some weapons around him and give him some better protection. They got Thomas on the left side, but not much protection on the right. So maybe they'll go after a lineman. Maybe they'll go after someone like Julio Jones to try to get some skill position strength for the Browns. So
I'd like to chime in on that.
go for it.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I actually disagree. I mean, well, not disagree. Yeah, obviously they can use weapons, but the Browns have not been good for quite some time. I think they need a new formula of success. The Browns usually take skill position players early. Maybe they should get some grittier players. I think they could use a defensive end. I'm thinking Robert Quinn out of North Carolina. I think they kind of need to change the formula of successor. I think it's the same thing with Cincinnati. Look at the Steelers. I mean, of course, it's not the sexiest type of offense or maybe even defense for that matter, but they do it with linemen, power, and consistency. I think they need to build up everything other than skill positions first and then go back to skill positions. But hey, that's just my opinion. I think it's a formula that works.
You know what? You bring up a valid point. A wise man once said, if you think the way you've always thought, you're always going to get what you always got. And you take a look at the Steelers and their formula for success throughout the Bill Cowher years and into the early Mike Tomlin years. It's pretty much all one and the same, where it's power football. And they develop linebackers like the way Shanahan used to develop running backs when he was out in Denver. And it's success brings success, and it brings even more success as success continues. Just like failure begats failure. And you take a look at that in the Cleveland organization. I think what's really needed in Cleveland, and by no means am I a Cleveland Browns fan, but I feel for the team to a certain extent, mainly because, well, maybe it's because I work in Ohio. Who knows? But they need continuity.
Exactly.
They need to be able to do something good more than once, and they need to start feeling good about themselves in the whole process.
They need a clean slate. All these teams, in my opinion, need a clean slate. The Lions have been bad forever. They always draft skill position players first. Always a wide receiver. How many times these wide receivers, besides Calvin Johnson, turn out to be anything good? Never. These teams need to change things. Go power run. Go with building up your defense first. And then I can almost guarantee you that they'll start seeing success. But if they wanted to start doing the sexy skill position player picks all the time in the draft and free agency, it's not going to happen. You got to get your line settled first before your skill position players can have success.
And the Lions started doing that last couple of years. Now look, they were 7-9 this year, couple games out of the playoffs. They get those 2 wins against the Bears that they deserved and probably should have won if it weren't for fluke incompletion at the end of the game and a phantom personal foul call, both against the Bears. You could be looking at them making a wild card berth instead of Green Bay.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and you can even say the Arizona Cardinals had basically changed their organization around by, basically taking the cast-offs from the Pittsburgh Steelers. I like to call it Cardinals Pittsburgh West, but really it's the same philosophy out there. They're taking those players that were proven commodities in Pittsburgh and basically are plugging them in to fill the gaps that are apparent or that were apparent. Now, there's a lot that's going to need to be said about the Arizona Cardinals organization now too. They had a horrible year.
Yeah, they had a horrible year. They're 4-12 this year, but the previous 2 years, they went to the Super Bowl against the Steelers, and then they made the playoffs. They actually beat the Packers and lost to the Saints. But you were right about them. They started to change things. They took the Steelers staff. Some of the former Steelers, like Joey Porter, started to follow them there, and look what happens. They didn't make the playoffs this year, but remember, they lost their Hall of Fame quarterback, Kurt Warner. So you can't exactly, say what they were doing isn't working. They lost Kurt Warner. A lot of things changed. Fitzgerald couldn't get into a rhythm. But once they get their quarterback, up and going, I'm not sure if John Skelton's that guy. I think they'll get back to the playoffs fairly quickly, actually.
Okay, real quick here. We have a handful of quarterbacks right now coming out of the draft itself. And we have a handful of potential free agents out there as well. Where do you see the top quarterbacks and free agents going right now, and some of the organizations that need quarterbacks? For instance, Tennessee's going to be looking for a quarterback. Cincinnati's going to be looking for a quarterback. Washington, the Redskins will be looking for a quarterback. Where do you see the chips falling here, gentlemen?
Dotson, I'll let you lead off. I interrupted you the last 5 times, so I apologize.
That's quite all right, Alex. I think fit-wise, I think Cam Newton is the best fit for Washington. I think that's where he will most succeed, and I think that is the quarterback that would succeed most in Washington. As for other quarterbacks getting drafted, Carolina probably could and should, but I don't think they will. I think they'll try to stick with Clausen. Don't think that's the greatest idea, but they're going to do it. And I think that you're going to see a drafted quarterback up in Minnesota in the early rounds. They could possibly look at someone like Gabbert. Don't think he's exactly a good fit there either, but I wouldn't be surprised to see the Vikings going with Blaine Gabbert. As for free agents, yeah, I think Tennessee and Seattle and possibly Arizona could be in the running for trying to execute a trade for someone like Carson Palmer. Beyond that, I think everything is just very much variable. There's a lot that could happen based off of what happens here in the next couple of weeks with the CBA.
Well, Greg, you're probably not going to like me for this because I know you're a big Alex Smith fan, but I actually see the Niners drafting a quarterback. I think they go with Ryan Mallett out of Arkansas. He's a big dude, 6'7", kind of reminds me of Ben Roethlisberger, but I'm starting to wonder if the Alex Smith experiment's even working at all. I'm starting to wonder if they have faith in him at all, and I don't think they do.
The only reason why I say Alex Smith I was a fan of Alex Smith is he was so highly entertaining, and the fact that he couldn't put 2 plays together at the same time. But in reality, though, yeah, I really do see that Alex Smith experiment, gone up in flames. I don't see him back over there. Now, where do you put somebody like Kevin Kolb?
Well, I think, yeah, obviously they will try and make a deal for him. I don't see them releasing him, but I'm trying to think where he would go. And then if all these teams select quarterbacks in the draft, I'm not really sure. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up somewhere like in Arizona. I wouldn't be surprised if they even do a deal with the Titans for him. But I don't think the Titans will go for Kevin Kolb. I think they'll go for Blaine Gabbert. Kevin Kolb, he's kind of a big question mark right now. I mean, he's a very good quarterback. I mean, he was a leading quarterback going into last season. Of course, we all know how that happened, and Michael Vick just exploded. But other than that, I'm really not sure. I just can't see him anywhere else. I mean, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if Palmer went to Seattle. I guess they could ship Kolb to Seattle. But right now, with Kevin Kolb, I think he's just up for grabs.
Yeah, I think Arizona is a good bet there. I know that in hopes to keep Larry Fitzgerald both in the organization and keep him happy, I know that they were asking him for specifics on whatever quarterback that they went for. And I think they're going to try to go for a veteran quarterback rather than one in the draft. And I think Kevin Kolb would be... I still think Palmer would be a better fit out there, but I think Kolb, we can definitely be seeing Kolb in Cardinal Red next year.
Let's shift gears here, gentlemen, and talk a little bit about the collective bargaining agreement, or should I say disagreement, at this particular time frame. There seems to be miles and miles and miles of distance between the players and the owners, and of course we're getting down to that crucial deadline. Are we going to have a season next year? Is this draft all going to be for naught? Let's start this off here with some of the main points here. James, why don't you enlighten us here with what you have?
Well, with regards to what's going on right now, it's a disagreement in a lot of different fashions. They want to talk about what there's going to be in terms of how many games next year. Stick with 16, or the NFL wants to move it to 18. Will there be a rookie salary cap? What are the benefits for retired for retired players, both ones who have already retired and future retirees of the NFL. And this is a special concern with head injuries. But to me, when you get through all of this, it sounds like a big contradiction in and of itself, because NFL wants to be able to help its players by providing better safety for them. That's what they've been preaching with all these helmet-to-helmet hits over the last year. But then they want to add 2 extra games to the season. They want to put their players in further injury risk. To me, it just seems like the NFL is contradicting itself, and the players are now calling them out on it.
Well, I think, and I'm no big, I mean, I could go either way on this here, James, but the thing is, the NFL is a business, and it is one of the most profitable businesses in the world right now. I think it's got a fan base which is bigger than NASCAR, which is pretty big in itself. But when you look at this, yeah, there are a lot of unnecessary preseason games, unnecessary as far as not providing revenues, but necessary, though, in the development of how we're going to develop the team itself. And so, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how all this pans out. Hines Ward, very vocal against the NFL by his some of his statements that the NFL takes some of James Harrison's hits and sells the pictures on the internet. Yet they're finding James Harrison $100,000 for a hit that they're selling the picture for on the internet. I mean, it's like, well, why, you're saying you can't do this, but we're going to do this anyway.
Well, what I'll say to that, Greg, is they did retract that fairly quickly. From what I understand, that was someone within the organization who decided to make that call. That did not represent the entire NFL. The entire NFL, I guess, was actually against that. But, yeah, I do think it's hypocritical.
Well, and there's other things, too. I mean, we're talking about big money deals with tobacco, big money deals with alcohol. You take a look at the NFL cracking down on players with drinking and public drunkenness and disorderly conduct. However, as the coaches are up there talking, you've got the Coors Light banner behind them. It's in one hand they're saying, okay, you can't do this. On the other hand, they're saying, but it's okay for everybody else to do this. It is a big business, and sometimes business deals do get ugly here. But
this is more than business now. I mean, people say, "What's the big deal? 2 games." There's 4 NFL preseason games. Just make the other 2 games that count. Well, from a selfish standpoint, yeah, I would love to see an extra 2 games. But here's the thing: that does increase the risk for injury. I mean, we all know what happened with Dave Duerson. I mean, he committed suicide and wanted his brain to be devoted to science because of all the head trauma he experienced. And now the NFL wants to add an extra 2 games. I think what happened to him was a big blow to the NFL. Of course, it was tragic to him and his family. But they can't just add 2 games and then say to themselves, oh, we want to keep this a safe league, as safe as we can. We don't want these illegal headshots. We don't want this. We don't want that. But they are being hypocritical. They want 2 extra games, and they know it'll increase injury. So from a selfish standpoint, yeah, I'd love 2 games, but all the players do not want an extra 2 games. It probably is better this way, too. I mean, what if a team goes 14-0? Essentially, the last 4 games are meaningless anyway. So to me, it's just a whole big contradiction. The players, as far as the players go, yeah, I think there should be a rookie scale. I mean, it's ridiculous that some of these rookies get paid, $60 million, turn out to be nothing. So
you have the Jamarcus Russells and the Ryan Leafs of the world.
Yeah. Well, look, Eric Berry last year signed a contract to become the highest paid cornerback in NFL history without ever stepping foot onto a football field. Yeah. That's just wrong.
It's ridiculous.
But the contract is only good as the paper that it's written upon. But irregardless, yeah. But you do see guys out there that have signed some big-name contracts that have gone bust, and have gone bust in a very, very big way. I mean, Jamarcus Russell, perfect example. You take a look at the gosh, I even forgot the guy's name. He was the quarterback at Notre Dame before Jimmy Clausen. He ended up over at the Cleveland Browns.
Brady
Quinn.
Quinn.
Brady Quinn, yes, our good friend Brady Quinn signed a huge contract with the Cleveland Brownies, and what team's he backing up on now? I think he's with the Denver Broncos now, I think.
Last I checked, yeah, he was still in Denver.
I didn't even know he was still alive, so I guess it says more
Yeah,
about
no,
him.
he's alive. You see sightings of him around Cleveland looking for his old team again, but nonetheless, I mean, you start to wonder, it's like why? And you take a look at the owners. The ownership is a lot of it bears the blame on this. The Jerry Joneses of the world, the Mr. Snyders of the world over there in Washington that come up with some unrealistic figures itself, just to say that they did what they did so they can get a bigger piece of the splash of the media pie itself. I'm not sure. I mean, there's just a lot of incongruity out there on all those levels. But the other thing, though, which is really important, which I have been following, is what is the NFL doing for these players after they retire? These are players now that can't go out and get regular health insurance anymore because they have pre-existing conditions from whenever they played in the NFL. I mean, they've got surgically reconstructed knees. They've got concussion injuries itself, pre-Parkinson's disease due to the brain being rattled. Health insurance companies aren't going to be picking these people up, quite happily. So what is the NFL going to do for these players? And that's the other part of this whole collective bargaining agreement here, too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they're they're trying to work all that stuff out now. I'm not happy with the way the NFL is going now. There's just too much disagreement as far as, what's going on with these players after their careers. Yeah, like I just said, look what happened to Dave Dewerson. These are serious injuries that need to be addressed. And if they come out of this, if they do reach an agreement and what happens and they reach something where these players essentially who have to retire don't get a better deal, it's pretty sad in a way. It's just one big contradiction.
Mm-hmm. The insurance and everything and health care that they get while they're in the league obviously is good enough. Heard stories a couple days ago about one player's wife, I didn't mention any names, who actually induced labor on, I think it was February 26th, to make sure that everything went through and was fine before this lockout happened, to make sure that they were still under the NFL's protection at that point. So obviously what they're doing for the current players is good enough. Why can't they do it for some of their retirees too?
Yeah, I really think that there needs to be a fund set up for the retirees, and especially for those people that have exhibited the brain injuries, the spinal cord injuries, like the Mike Utleys of the world, or the Dennis Birds of the world out there. Having a foundation out there for those people who have had devastating injuries out there. There definitely needs to be something done on that as well.
Well, I'm sorry, one more thing. Well, I think another question is which retirees get these benefits? Do you offer the same type of support to someone like Joey Harrington, who came into the league, didn't even play a game, but technically retired? Does he get the same benefits?
I think there needs to be a base benefit level itself to anybody that's played in the league for X number of years. And then from that point, you have to sit down and you have to, I mean, the game is about stats. And whatever you put in is what you get out. If you survive the league and you were in the league for 5 years, you should be able to get the benefit package covering the basic.
Yeah, the only thing I see with that is how do you compare Troy Aikman, who's had 4 or 5 concussions throughout his career, versus a Mike Vanderjagt, a kicker who stands on the sideline, kicks a ball around, and then kicks the ball 60 yards down the field and runs for half of it on the kickoff. I mean, I think you got to look at, there's going to be some differences with position players too.
Well, I mean, yeah, you're probably right. Like both you and Greg said, there'll be something where a certain amount of years then you get the benefits. Because someone who gets drafted and doesn't even play, like Joey Harrington or Tyler Palka, should they even get the same kind of benefits? They didn't even play. They weren't even part of the league, so they have to do something with it.
Well, they're part of the league, but they're the clipboard holders out there. That's a big thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Hopefully they'll at least give them an option to like build their own insurance package or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
These are things that most people don't want to think about, but need to be thought about, because without answers to these particular questions itself, there won't be an NFL season for us to be thinking about. And so that's something that definitely needs to be thought about ahead of time here and discussed. And we welcome any and all comments on this. And if there's a way we can make this better, hey, love to hear it, and we'd love to submit it to our dear friend and Washington Jefferson graduate, Roger Goodell.
Well, I think the worst part about this lockout is no fantasy football, right?
Let's talk a little bit about that. I really think that they're going to come to an agreement here pretty darn quickly, because lack of money is something that nobody wants to have. The players definitely don't want to lose money, and the owners definitely don't want to lose money, and the fans aren't going to sit around and watch ESPN2 and euchre tournaments during the fall. I just don't see that happening.
Well, here you can also make the argument that the owners, have enough money already. If just from everything I'm reading, according to Adam Schefter from ESPN, owners are ready to wait this thing out. They are ready for a lockout. They're prepared to shut this down. So it just seems like both sides do not want to budge. I think the players will suffer more from it than the owners will, but that's just my opinion.
It's definitely going to be an interesting ride because, yeah, you're right. The owners have everything all planned out. They've been planning for this for 2 years from the signs of the money. It sounds like they've been planning it for 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, they opted out of the current CBA in 2008. So, they're ready for this. They're going to take this all the way. It's going to go into the courts, and it's going to get messy.
And the best that they could offer, or the best that they could suggest to the players was to save your last game check and hope that it would satisfy them for the entire year. Well, their last game check would satisfy me for about 6 or 7 years. So for them, it should last about 6 or 7 weeks. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. I definitely think the players they're gonna be feeling the pressure to have to conform quicker because they're not the ones who have been making billions of dollars owning a business.
Exactly. I think we're going to see an increase of college fantasy football. We're going to see a lot of increase in those type of things. I don't know what I'm going to do on my Sundays next year.
Hey, the professional bowling is always on ESPN at 1 o'clock.
Oh, joy. Let's not forget poker. That's always on. What else? NASCAR, right, Dotson?
Oh, another day.
Dotson's not a fan of NASCAR.
Okay, well, another segment we're going to discuss tonight is something that's kind of near and dear to my heart, and I think to a lot of people's hearts out there. We all got started in sports at one time or another at the grade school level itself, either watching or playing, certain sport. And oftentimes our perception of the game is influenced by the coach. And coaching today, at least from what I've seen on several different occasions within the past 2 months, dealing with grade school and developmental type kids itself, developmental sports itself, has taken a turn which is quite shocking. And which prompted me to write an article on our 360 Sports Network about coaching like a champion and not coaching like a chump that a lot of elementary school and even junior high and even high school coaches are guilty of. James, you wrote an article early on with our quest here with 360 Sports about the Brentwood girls team that lost at an atrocious game. What was the score in that game, James?
113-14 they lost to Stephen LaSalle.
113-14, and this was a high school team, a girls' high school team. Am I correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
varsity.
now, yeah, a girls' varsity high school team. I happened to be at a tournament, a sixth grade basketball tournament in Hermitage over the past weekend, where St. Joseph's School, which is a small Catholic school in Sharon, was playing Meadville. And the score was 55-0 going into the third quarter of the game. At what point do you decide to take your starters out and to put your bench players in? And at what point do you, for both teams, when you see a score like this and it's so incredibly lopsided, it gets to a point where, somebody's getting injured here due to the physicality of the game, number one, and also due to the mental componentry of the game. My son happened to be playing for St. Joe's. He happened to be sitting on the bench much of that particular game. Was very frustrated, as were the starting members of the team for St. Joe's, who were very frustrated as well because they were being stymied by a full-court press much of the first half of the game by the Meadville team, which wasn't allowing a single point, let alone a shot to be made by the St. Joseph School. And you look at the coach, and the coach is pour it on. And it's like, wait a second, there's nothing being learned here except negative behavior. And I really believe that both coaches need to say, hey, time out, let's look at ourselves in the mirror and let's reassess what we're doing.
I agree. I mean, what happened to sportsmanship? Some people will say, well, they need to learn to be competitive. They need to learn to follow through. You know what? It's sixth grade basketball. This is not even in high school, it shouldn't happen. This isn't college. This isn't pro. Let the kids play. Let them experience sportsmanship. What's the point of having a player who's sick out there playing who shouldn't even be out there in the first place? Well, there's no point to it. There's nothing positive to be gained. So anytime something like this happens, the one thing I think of is, where's the positives? Well, I don't see any.
The University of Notre Dame actually has a workshop that's out there, and everybody who coaches within the Diocese of Erie had to attend this particular workshop. I am a soccer coach during the fall season, and I attended this. The workshop is called Play Like a Champion, and it basically talks about playing all of your kids, not just playing your best and your most adept kids out there, but playing the kids that are the ones that would be basically the ones that would be having trouble making the team. Sports at an early age, sports in the elementary school level, and even in the high school level itself, to a certain extent, is developmental. You can even make an argument that varsity high school sports is developmental. These kids that are playing varsity sports in high school, very few of them actually go on to play that sport in college. And very few people that are outstanding in college actually make it to the pros. So, granted, everybody wants to have a winning season, but on the same token, we have to take a look and assess, what is this all about? Why am I coaching the way that I'm coaching? And a very good player will oftentimes get overshadowed by somebody who might even be just a little bit better, or maybe just having a little bit better day. But that player that's very good never gets a chance to play and never gets a chance to prove himself because somebody has a favorite player of somebody else. It's frustrating to see that out there. And I wrote this particular article for people to basically take a look in the mirror and say, wait a second, why am I doing what I'm doing? What am I doing as a coach that is going to impart something positive to these kids that are out there? And in reality itself, you have to take a look and see where sportsmanship is going these days. And, perhaps all this partisanship that we have right now in politics is due to part and parcel due to poor sportsmanship and the inability for people to compete fairly with each other. At a very basic level. We all need to stop and take a look and say, wait a second, why are we doing what we're doing, and how are my actions influencing those people that are looking at me and learning from me?
Yeah, what I see in all this is I think you can definitely make an argument either way with high school sports, whether it's still developmental or whether you're to the point where you can essentially have a just win baby attitude at that age level. But when you're talking sixth grade kids basketball, I mean, these are kids out there 11, 12 years old, and you're trying to tell them to literally pummel this team into the ground, get up over 40, 50 points at halftime. I mean, for me, when you're playing in a game like this, yeah, go ahead, stay in your press at the beginning because that's how you like to play. But once you get like a 15, 20-point lead, don't you think it's about time that you can, release the hounds a little bit and play back? And, I mean, both of these coaches had this just win attitude when they're playing their starters all this time. Tell you what, when I first read this article that you posted, Greg, my first response was, these guys aren't playing to win. They're playing to win now, but they're playing to lose later. When you're up by 20, 30 points, why would you keep your starters and get them injured when you know you have games down the line, not only in this tournament, but for the rest of the season? And same for St. Joe's. When you're down big and you have players who are sick, why is a sick person playing if he's not helping the team to begin with? But then once you're down by certain points, you know you're going to have another game later in the day. If a good coach should know they have the next game literally right after it. You need to, get your second and third string some action. Take your starters out. Let them rest. Let them try to recuperate so that they can play another game later that day if they have to.
Perhaps a mercy rule needs to be enforced in these leagues itself, where if a team is ahead by 30-some points, and it's going to be impossible for that team to come back from that type of lead itself, that the game gets called.
Yeah, or even get the running clock. I mean, I was working at a local tournament for 4th, 5th, 6th grade teams, and I think it was after a 20-point lead that they put the running clock on for the rest of the game, no matter what happened. Now, one of the games, team ended up cutting it back to 10 points, but the clock was still running at that point because the thought was they can't come back and win it. But I mean, even in those games, I'm watching the games, and it's the same sort of thing. No matter what age group, no matter what level of play that their teams are, all they care about is that their team is going to win this game. There was not one coach there that I was fully impressed with the way that they handled their team. I mean, you had coaches yelling at their players, and they're 10, 11 years old. They're gonna really understand why you're yelling at them for trying a behind-the-back pass because they see Kobe Bryant doing it on TV.
Yeah. It's interesting now. I coach soccer for St. Joe's for the past 4 years. And during that time frame when I coached soccer, we had 3 years of a perfect losing record. We didn't win one game. But the kids learned how to play their positions itself. And the final year that I coached, which was this particular year, we actually had what I called a winning season, where we had 2 ties and a victory. Granted, these were short seasons. These were, basically 5-game seasons, and that was pretty much it. But what was interesting to note about this was each year we saw these kids getting better and better. I actually had a parent call me out this past year where the kid's dad was an assistant coach on my team. And he wanted to coach because he wanted to be more involved with his son. And I said, fine, go ahead, do this. The kid was just horrible at practice, didn't put forth any effort at all, and I always rewarded the kids that tried hard and played hard in practice with playing time on the field itself. And now, granted, in soccer, you can take some of your weaker players and put them in positions where they can actually be a benefit to the team itself. In basketball, it's a little bit more difficult to hide a weaker player, perhaps, but nonetheless, there are ways of doing it. That's why you're a coach, and that's why you understand the game, so you can work all the players into the best type of situation as you can. But going back to this player who was weak, who was basically a goof-off in practice, the kid's mother called me up and said, "Why aren't you playing him?" And I explained to her why he was doing what he was doing, and she said, "Yes, my husband says the same thing, but you know what? He's not learning anything. Play him." So I did. I put him on the front line, and the kid ended up being the lead scorer because nobody on the other team took him seriously either. They all thought of him as a goofball. And all of a sudden, the goofball became the hero because nobody was covering him, and he learned what he had to learn in practice to become that type of player, and he became a very strong striker for our team. And he was part and parcel as to why we won the game that we won against St. Mike's, and why we ended up tying a couple of the teams that we came from behind, and actually had a pretty good season as a result. So, with that said, I always tell each and every one of my players from the soccer standpoint, I'm proud of them. I'm proud of their accomplishments. And I want them all to feel good about themselves. Now, granted, maybe my coaching philosophy is such where we didn't win a whole lot of games, and we weren't making any headlines per se. But you know what? I'm not looking for that in the grade school setting. That's something that somebody in the high school setting can deal with. I'm just happy to have a bunch of kids that can go on to junior high, and they know what they're supposed to know regarding soccer and how to pass the ball and how to play their positions.
I think, your philosophy of coaching is exactly the way it should be at that age, and even up into the high school age. And I think it's best summed up with a good quote from the Hoosiers and Coach Norman Dale. Was talking to his team right before the state championship game in David versus Goliath, but it can be relayed into anything. Quote, "If you put your effort and concentration into playing to your potential to be the best that you can be, I don't care what the scoreboard says at the end of the game. In my book, we're going to be winners."
That's right.
But, that's the way that our players need to be encouraged about the game. Not we need to win this game every game. When like you said, you had a winning season with a couple of ties and a win. That, from the sound of things, a win is a win. But I mean, if you have even a loss 4-3 against one of the top teams in the division or whatever, to me, that's a win. If your team played that well and the team, frankly, almost deserved to win, or at least improve from the last game. If you can improve game to game, that's winning to me.
When you put such unrealistic expectations on grade school kids, that's when you have to start and examine yourself as an individual, and you have to ask yourself, wait a second, am I really doing the right thing, expecting a grade school kid to play like a professional athlete? And if you answer yes, then you have no reason to be coaching at that particular level.